Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I'm your host, Brittany Ford, and I am a registered holistic nutritionist, content creator, podcaster, and all of the things. This episode was a lot of fun. I talked to Lea, and we have quite a similar background in terms of the health issues that we both have been through. And she works with women who really struggle with their gut health, which can lead to other hormonal issues like PCOS, which we also get into. But we talk a lot about gut health and how stress impacts it, sleep, muscle, how much muscle mass you have, and exercise and working out. We talk about supplementations and lab testing and functional medicine. And so this is a very good overview of gut health issues and kind of how everything is really related to them. You know, the gut impacts everything, but everything also impacts the gut. And we kind of explain that connection and really dive into how this impacts women's health. So if you're somebody who has any gut health issues, you know, whether it's dysbiosis or, which is like a lot of bad bacteria versus good bacteria, or a leaky gut or SIBO or parasites or anything like that, I think you will take something away from this episode and definitely learn something. If you want to do a deep dive into gut health, I have a bunch of episodes on gut health. You can even go into my website. You can just go to the search bar and type in gut health and you can see all of them there. I talk about my own journey with gut health and how I healed it, 10 years ago and, all of the different things that I did at the time, where I'm at now with it. And I have a lot of content on it. So definitely check that out. If you're just kind of starting to heal and look into this, there's a lot you can learn. And I have all sorts of experts on in this space who really dive into various aspects of gut health and what we can do about it. So enjoy this podcast episode. Before we dive in, a shout out to Bioptimizers. I am absolutely obsessed with their mushroom drink. I'm actually going to make some after this because it's 2 p.m. and that means that that afternoon slump is just around the corner. So basically they have this drink. It's called Mushroom Breakthrough, and you take a scoop or two of it, add it to milk. So I use like coconut milk, and it's filled with adaptogenic mushrooms, things like cordyceps or lion's mane or chaga. And really what this helps to do is help with brain health, helps with focus, memory retention, memory recall, and helps basically the brain function better without being stimulated, like through caffeine or something like that. So that's called Mushroom Breakthrough by the company Bioptimizers. They are my favorite supplement brand, and I really recommend this to everybody. And this is what I've actually started calling around my house mommy's milk. So obviously I'm breastfeeding right now, but I rely on this milk to help me, and my baby relies on my milk. So I call it mommy's milk, and it really just helps me with mom brain, which is a real thing. And I just did an episode on it. So you can go listen to the neuroscience behind mom's brain if you are interested and you can relate. So definitely check that out. Use my discount code BiohackingBrittany in all capitals. I think that gets you the most amount off. I use all their supplements, but this is one of my favorites right now. And I'm definitely enjoying the chai flavor because it tastes so good. So I'm going to make a glass of that right after this. I can feel my brain needs it. Enjoy this podcast episode. I will catch you for another episode on Friday. I put out episodes every Tuesday and Friday. We are a small but mighty growing community. And please leave a review, subscribe, do all the things that support the show. And you can also send me a DM. I know a lot of you love to do that, of like what you related to and what you think of certain topics. So you're more than welcome to do that. And thank you so much. And I will catch you soon for another episode. Welcome to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be diving into all things gut health and kind of making the connections between stress and sleep and weight gain and undereating, overeating, all these things, and really how the gut can actually be the root cause of that and how it is related to those different issues that are in topics that a lot of us are dealing with. So I have Lea Dombrowski on the show with me today. She is a passionate holistic health coach, and she is dedicated to helping women overcome gut health issues and reclaim their strength. So after struggling with fatigue and bloating and hormonal imbalances herself, she now helps other people do it, help with that and work with that. You know what I'm trying to say? Mom brain kicking in this morning. But Lea, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So I would love for you to kind of kick us off with your personal health journey, kind of take us back to the beginning. And when did you start noticing like that something might be off or wrong or anything like that?
That's an interesting question because I have two different answers to it because my health journey pretty much started the second I was born. I was born pretty much the first year of my life had horrible chronic infections for the whole first year of my life and was on antibiotics for every single day pretty much of the first year of my life. And that's of course when your microbiome is developing and you're like a newborn, you're very sensitive. So that would pretty much be the start of my health journey. But I guess at the time, growing up and kind of having these chronic infections and being sick all the time, I didn't really think much of it. I was like, oh, I'm just a kid or whatever, it's sick, but it was just so much more often than, normal when I'd be getting infections and being on antibiotics. But I think the time where I kind of did notice and started connecting all the dots, okay, well, obviously this has been going on forever was when I was 20. And when I was 20 years old, that's when I kind of had those more obvious symptoms, like the bloating and the chronic fatigue, like you mentioned. I had chronic fatigue so bad I could barely function. My brain was so foggy and it was horrifying. And when I started having symptoms like that, I was like, okay, now I'm making sense of everything. And, just I grew up, all I knew was to go to the doctor and back out of things. And of course, a lot of people kind of know and say it's that wasn't very helpful. And doctors aren't the most helpful for these things, but that's all I knew. And I spent about 2 to 3 years, going to doctors, going to specialists, getting every single test done you can imagine, got a colonoscopy, endoscopy, all the things. And after 2 to 3 years, I was just so frustrated. And I was like, okay, it's getting worse. At this point, it was just building up symptom wise. And I was like, okay, well, I have to find something else. And that's kind of when I dove into nutrition, fitness, all these things, just researching on my own because there was nobody out there who could really give me answers. And even my first experience in the functional medicine practitioner was extremely negative. And, I always say there's good and there's bad in every industry. So it really did take me kind of doing my own research, getting my own certifications, becoming a practitioner myself to really understand how to heal. And that was kind of to me okay, I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. That was absolutely horrible. I'm paying people, I'm showing up and doing all the things, but just I couldn't find help and somebody who cared. And I think that's what was lacking on my journey. And that's kind of what brought me to being a coach and kind of was okay, well, I actually care about people. And I just, oh my God, it was a mess. So I'm very grateful, but I was able to, heal and send my autoimmune disease that I ended up getting into remission and just feel better in my body. So that's kind of a little bit about me and kind of my story.
Yeah. I'm so curious about your functional medicine practitioner. If you share as much as you're willing to share, but it's very shocking to hear that you had a bad experience. But like you said, there's good and bad in every profession. So was it just they just dismissed you and didn't take you seriously, which happens a lot with medical doctors, or what was your experience there?
Yeah, I've met being in the industry, I've met quite a few negative practitioners. I mean, I feel they're more common than you think, with the rage of functional medicine now, I think it's becoming a little bit more money centered, which is unfortunate, where you will walk in the door and they're going to ask for thousands of dollars worth of tests and supplements and this and that and that. And it's completely overwhelming. And, for me, I walked in and had that story where they didn't look at my diet, didn't look at my lifestyle. They just gave me supplements and tests and was like, here you go. And it wasn't very personalized. And I think the true holistic practitioners who care, like, actually look at you, look at your diet, look at who you are, like where you come from, your story. They don't just care about the tests and the supplements. And I think I actually interned for a functional medicine practitioner, and they were just as bad. Like, every single person who walked in the door got the same diet and the same supplement protocol. And I was like, how is this holistic? How is this individualized? But a lot of practitioners kind of do that. And they really, I mean, it's not like it's like absolutely a scam, but it's like, that's not helpful to me. It's like giving everybody the same things and just wanting to make everybody spend millions of dollars to heal their body. Like, you don't have to spend that much money, let alone you don't need all those supplements, because like they gave me like 20 and I'm like, your body cannot do 20 things at once. And I just felt worse. Like, the supplements made me feel worse because it's like so overwhelming to your body, like having 20 supplements, and it's just overdone. So that's, to me, like, definitely the red flags in the functional side of things that I always tell people to look out for.
No, I think you're spot on. And I think it also happens with like naturopathic doctors as well, integrative physicians, whatever it might be. I had a similar experience years ago when I first went to a naturopath, and she was like, oh, you need all of these supplements, and you're so desperate for answers and for help that you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to buy all of this because I'm hoping it's going to get results. So I don't know any better. And then you end up you're adding so much in without removing things and without looking at lifestyle and diet that it's like, it's not really doing much. Like supplements can be extremely helpful, but like you need the foundations in place before you even start to really take anything. Because if your diet's crappy, your lifestyle's crappy, like the supplement's really not going to be able to be as effective.
That's what I say all the time. It's like, supplements can only do so much. And that's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then you went on to study to become a health coach, and now you work with women who are kind of like in the same area of you, kind of what they've been through. Is it mostly gut health issues that you're seeing, or like, is it hormones and fertility as well? Or do you kind of just see, I guess like gut health can actually be related to both of those things as well. So like, how do you kind of like help women when they come to you with their gut health concerns?
Yeah. So my most typical person who kind of comes to me, like, either relates to me, like you said, with like bloating or gut health issues, or like they are trying to lose weight, but they have maybe something deeper going on. Because I think the most common things nowadays are things like PCOS, like thyroid issues, and that causes a lot of weight gain and a lot of issues losing weight. And that's kind of where I kind of come in, because I really do, like, for me, like, I did gain weight and I did lose weight, and I went through all these changes with my body throughout my journey. So a lot of people do come to me hoping to lose weight and heal their imbalance and heal their gut. So like the two, probably the majority of people that I attract. But when somebody comes to me, I said, like, the first thing I want to do is understand where they're at. Like, I'm going to do, like, always the first thing I do is a nutrition analysis, so I can see, okay, where are they at now with their nutrition? Because that's really the most important. Like, what nutrients are they getting? What are they eating? What does that look like for them? What does their lifestyle look like? And just having that lengthy intake process where I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit like, it's not that long, like, it's not like it's going to take you hours, but it's like, it's still like so helpful for me to understand, like, what actually does this person need? Do they need some stress supports? Do they need some nutrition supports? Do they need some lifestyle? Do they need fitness supports? And like, I kind of pull through all those things and give them like the most tailored protocol I can that's, nutrition, fitness, lifestyle related. And then once I kind of dial that in, then I do the functional medicine piece. So like you said, it always comes down to the things that we call foundations first, like sleep, like stress, like eating, and then let's look at your blood work, because by the time we focus on that and then I see your blood work, then your inflammation markers might be down and it might be a little bit more easy for me to read. So I always like to start with kind of just reducing that inflammation, dialing things in first.
Nice. I love that. When people come to you, are there common like misconceptions that you hear about gut health that people have. I know when I was working with clients one-on-one, it was a lot of like, I'll just take a probiotic and everything will be fine type of thing. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't know, like there's different issues you can have with your gut. It's not just a lack of healthy bacteria that is the issue, although a lot of people do have that. So do you have like common misconceptions that people come to you and then you have to kind of like educate them on?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think like just with the internet, everybody has some sort of misconceptions, whether it's about gut health, nutrition, fitness, whatever it is. There's like always some like disparities. And I think, the two that I see are people being miseducated on like PCOS, because a lot of people don't even know like what PCOS is, I feel like. So a lot of the women who come to me with PCOS, like I do have to educate them a lot about what this PCOS is. People think it's just, oh, I just have PCOS, but I'm like, no, it's usually a form of insulin resistance, and there's usually something deeper going on in your body. So that's definitely one that I do a lot of education on, is how to support PCOS and how to like actually, manage that properly. And then the second thing I see would be probably nutrition wise. A lot of women, especially like, pretty much most women, whether they're like 20 years old or like, 60, like they have misconceptions about how much they should be eating. And like a lot of people, especially who were raised in like the 60s and the 70s with the, the rise of these fad diets like keto and intermittent fasting, and having all these like diets blasted all over TikTok every single day where you see a new diet. I think there's a huge lack of education because so many people are stuck in this like diet mentality and mindset that it's causing a lot of metabolic issues and a lot of metabolism issues. So that's kind of another thing that I do a lot of education on, is like, okay, you don't have to eat 1,200 calories a day to lose weight. And like, that's not good for you. So that's like, probably those are like the two that I spend most of my time like talking about.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I really feel like going to PCOS, like I feel like it's so, I don't want to say overdiagnosed, but it might be overdiagnosed at this point. Like I just see so many women saying that they have PCOS, and it almost feels like something that doctors are just kind of like slapping onto women, being like, this is a condition that you have, and this explains why you might be struggling to get pregnant, or your periods are doing this, or you're hormonal, or blah, 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 whatever it might be. When I like, because that happened to me, a doctor was like, oh, I think you have PCOS. And so I went down the rabbit hole of trying to understand it. And with PCOS, the biggest thing that I learned was that it's actually a spectrum. So you can have a woman who presents with the typical symptoms of PCOS, and she checks every single box, like cysts, irregular periods, high androgens, like she has the facial hair, she has the weight gain in certain places, all of those things. But you could have someone who has maybe only one or two of those, but could also still have that issue, or not issue, condition. So I think PCOS is complicated in that way of like, it's not just something that, you have it and it's so easy to identify. It's like a spectrum and it's complicated. And that's at least what I found. So I don't know what you think about that in terms of like what you see with your clients. Would you agree, or do you think it's more like identifiable than that?
Yeah, no, it's like, two people can look completely different and have different issues and have the same issue. People have different symptoms. And I think the hard thing about PCOS is, like you said, it's very hard to diagnose, because a lot of doctors, it's kind of like a last resort diagnosis, because it's not like a straightforward test for it. Like, yeah, they can do blood work. Yeah, they can do ultrasound, but usually it's very hard to get diagnosed, because I had hormonal issues too. And I went down the rabbit hole, like you said, and maybe that is a possibility for me, but I just couldn't get diagnosed with it. And like doctors like literally would tell me, they're like, you might have it, you might not. I'm like, okay, that's helpful. It's like, cause it's like, it is like very much symptom based. Like you said, like you don't have the symptoms, you're not going to get diagnosed. Like if your, ultrasound maybe shows some irregularities, but you don't have the symptoms, you probably won't get diagnosed. If it doesn't show on your blood work, they're probably going to ignore it. So it is hard for people to get a PCOS diagnosis. And I think what's kind of frustrating about it is because, oh, you don't have hair growth, you don't have this, so you don't have PCOS. And I'm like, that's not the case, because a lot of the people I see with PCOS, maybe some of them have that issue, but a lot of them, don't have issues with their weight. Like I have one client who's, honestly a little bit underweight and she has PCOS and she doesn't have any symptoms, but that's something she experiences. So it's like different for everybody. So it's just a hard one.
Do you have trouble recalling names, dates, or where you left things? I definitely do as a new mom. I kid you not, I am forgetting things all of the time. I feel like I'm juggling so much in my brain, and it's really hard to keep clear-minded when you are taking care of a newborn. If you're struggling and you're finding it difficult to focus during the day, or you notice yourself zoning out when people are talking to you, your cognitive health and your brain could really use some love. Bioptimizers has created a one-of-a-kind product called Mushroom Breakthrough that can supercharge your brain power. It's packed with highly concentrated mushroom extracts that science shows enhance memory, focus, processing speed, and more. Just one serving contains 5 potent superfoods, collagen, and 1.2 pounds of 4 concentrated mushrooms: lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, and chaga. This cutting-edge blend is a powerful way to rebuild your brain and rewire it for maximum energy, focus, and performance in less than 30 days. After each serving of Mushroom Breakthrough, your ability to memorize and recall information will improve. This is actually I notice such a difference with this. I'm serious. Every time I take this, I notice a difference. And you'll get a heavy dose of antioxidants for immune support. The way that I do this is I drink it daily. I add 2 scoops to a large glass of nut milk, and I drink this in the afternoon. It's my afternoon pick-me-up that is not a stimulant. And as a new mom, as a parent, I literally rely on this. This is like my mommy's milk, mommy's mushroom milk that I rely on to get through my day and really help my brain perform much better, kind of like how it used to before having a baby. So don't miss out on the brain boosting power of this amazing product. For an exclusive offer, you can go to bioptimizers.com/biohackingbrittany and use code biohackingbrittany at checkout. This will get you the most amount off. So if you even compared to like Amazon or anywhere else that you see these products, my discount code will get you the most off. So make sure you use it. Again, that's Biohacking Brittany and use the code at checkout. And the great thing about Bioptimizers is that you can try it risk-free with their 365-day money-back guarantee. Try it now to sharpen your edge and reach your full potential. Yeah, it's complex. When I went through it, it was very similar. Like I had no issues with my insulin or glucose metabolism at all. But I presented with cysts on one of my ovaries and irregular cycles. And just based off of those 2 things, this walk-in clinic doctor who, whatever, don't take too seriously, was like, oh, I think you have PCOS. And so I did what I could to manage it and put it in remission without an official diagnosis. Yeah, it's just complex. And it's a pity almost that it's not more diagnosable, because then maybe we would have better solutions for it. But I think the best solution is very much what you do, is lifestyle and diet, because I did that and I was able to kind of like heal all of my hormonal issues that I was having. A lot of people don't want to hear that answer though.
I know. Yeah. I'm not a fan of, I know it's like metformin. It's like, oh, I'm like, okay. I don't think that's really that helpful because, like you said, it really is like PCOS is typically a form of insulin resistance. So, doing the lifestyle and the diet and kind of making your body, like kind of structuring that in a way where your body can kind of regulate blood sugar better and regulate insulin better is totally possible. And it's not like you have to do some like crash diet or some intensive like thing to like support PCOS. It's really about simple, basic things that, will really help your body. And I always tell people, like, in my clients with PCOS, I'm like, build muscle, because when you build muscle, your body's going to be a little bit more like able to like sensitize insulin, and also muscle's like the greatest thing that you can have. So I'm always like giving my clients like, a fitness routine to build muscle, and then like also like work on balancing your blood sugar and making some changes with your carbs and with your meals to be a little bit more supportive. And then like, like when I say that, it's like really include like a fat, a fiber, a carb, and a protein source at every meal. Maybe focus on more complex carbs because complex carbs are harder to digest. So it's going to slower the spike of insulin. So it's really like simple things. Like, yeah, they sound, simple, but they really do make a huge difference in PCOS and the symptoms.
Yeah, they do. And I love that you talked about building muscle. That's, when I was going through my own personal journey, I don't think I focused on building muscle. I focused on being active because obviously it helps to regulate the insulin, reduce the spike, blah, 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 all these things. But I think building muscle in itself is very interesting that you focus on that. So how do you see the relationship between metabolism and building muscle with yourself and with your clients?
I mean, the basics of it is that muscle burns more calories than fat. So that means it's going to inherently help your metabolism. But so much more than that, when you have muscle, like I said, your body's going to be a little bit better at regulating insulin, regulate if you do have a carby meal, like your body's going to have that protection. Not only that, I could go on and on all day about the benefits for bone health, about longevity wise, about having this strength in you, like to be able to play with your kids, to be able to run when you're older, to be better with regulating your hormones, even like your gut health, like having this muscle in your body. It's like the greatest currency that you can have and the greatest thing that you can kind of invest your time and energy into because it's going to just help you long term, not just with weight loss and metabolism, but with everything. Like I feel like muscle has some sort of benefit for every area of life.
Do you get any pushback from female clients when you like make these workout plans that are weightlifting? I'm sure as like weightlifting for building muscle, it tends to have a very masculine perception to it. And women don't want to get bulky and that type of thing. Is that kind of part of the narrative that you hear from your clients?
Honestly, not too much. I think that like if somebody knows me, they know that's what they're getting. Like if you like follow me on Instagram, like if you kind of know who I am, like that if you are going to work with me, you're going to be recommended to go into the gym. Like, am I going to force you to go? No. But like, I think no matter who you are and what you're struggling with, it's going to benefit you. And I'm very vocal about that. So sometimes I do have like clients who it's not more so like, oh, I'm going to get bulky. It's more so like, just they're kind of intimidated to start. And that's kind of where like I kind of have to do like, okay, they're brand new to the gym and kind of understanding where somebody's at and kind of helping them navigate it and not feel overwhelmed. So definitely I've had that, especially with older clients who are like, I have a client who's 70 and she was like, okay, well, like I'm old, like how do I navigate the gym? And I'm like, okay, like let's work on this together because yes, it's going to look a little bit different for you, but you will absolutely build muscle even at an old age. So it's just with the person and like kind of figuring out what they're comfortable with and making a protocol that fits their needs, even if they're going for 30 minutes and that's all that they can do and all that they're comfortable with. Like I'm going to help them do that because you can get a lot done in 30 minutes,
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's so interesting. I started going to the gym when I was 16. And so I've been to so many gyms and I'm so used to it. But I wonder what that would feel like for anybody who is walking into the gym for the first time at 70, at 40, at 20, whatever it is. Like I could imagine how intimidating it would feel because so many gyms, there are so many machines, there's so many areas, and there's so many people who are very fit. And then you walk in and you're like, oh my goodness, I have no idea what I'm doing. Where do I put this? Well, like, do I look stupid doing that? And then you become so self-conscious. So what would you recommend to those people listening who maybe haven't stepped into a gym in a long time? Like, how do you get over that feeling of like anxiety almost when you walk through the door?
I mean, I think the best thing to do is have a plan. Like, yeah, there is a lot in there, but if you're like, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do RDLs and I'm going to do squats and I'm going to leave, and having that, like, whatever it is, like having that plan where you're like, okay, I walk in there, I'm looking for the dumbbells. Let's go to the dumbbells. Let's pick them up. Let's do my thing. Whether you feel more comfortable doing it in a corner where like not a lot of people are, you want to bring them downstairs so like nobody can really see, like whatever's comfortable with you, just kind of knowing what you're doing, going in there with a plan. Because if you're going in there and you're like, okay, let's just go to the gym today, it's like, okay, well, obviously you're like, okay, where do I start? So like definitely having a plan and definitely making it like sustainable and realistic. If you're like, yeah, I know the gym overwhelms me, maybe don't do like 100 workouts. Maybe go in there and do like 3 and then just be like, okay, that's a good start, and just kind of inching your way. But the best way to get over that fear is to just show up, even if it is for, like I said, 30 minutes, and just like do a few dumbbell curls and some like RDLs and like just get yourself used to even being in that environment.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. The other thing that I would suggest is picking a better time to go. So like skip the before and after work hours that typically are so busy and go at like, if you can, like 2 p.m. on a Wednesday or something, you know what I mean? Versus like 6 p.m. when everyone is there or more people are there. Cause then you can kind of walk around and like see everything a bit better and be a bit more familiar. And the other thing I want to say is when I go to different gyms, I am like so proud of every single person that I see. Like for me, there's no judgment. Like no matter what your size, what you look like, if you have your butt in the gym, in my head, I'm like, wow, good job. Like right away, like that's impressive. You showed up for yourself. And people, people really don't care what other people are doing in the gym. Everyone is so focused on themselves and like staring at themselves in the mirror. There's really not as much judgment as people might think there is.
Yeah, I think, like you said, everybody's there to better themselves. And that's kind of what's beautiful about it. It's like everyone's there for a reason. No one's there to judge you. They're there to better themselves and to improve their health. And, people are so friendly there. I'm always saying, like, if you go to a machine and you're like, how the heck do I do this? People are so nice. You can be like, hey, do you mind showing me how to do this? Or like, how do you work this machine? People are like usually very open and nice in the gym, and it's more like a community. But if you want to be left alone and you have your headphones in, nobody's going to bother you, It's like, yeah.
People are there to work out and leave. And like, yeah, I love that. I think that's a really good point. I know we briefly talked about sleep and, you mentioned it as one of the things that you can kind of optimize for your gut health and for your hormones. Oh, how do you see that connection? Like, is it sleep helps the body like reset and nourish itself, which then reduces inflammation in the gut? Or like, how do you see those two areas connecting?
I think, the bottom line is that you need sleep. It's a necessity that you need and, can be very overlooked. A lot of people get busy and a lot of people neglect it. So it's just a thing that your body needs, just like water, just like food. Like if you don't sleep, like that's not benefiting you, because that, when you sleep, your body does certain things and your body kind of regulates itself in a certain way. And then if you don't have that, it's like, obviously you're going to feel tired. Obviously you're not going to feel motivated. It's going to, the biggest one I hear, it's like not sleeping does affect your hormones and affects your hunger cues, and it makes you more hungry because you're just exhausted. So like having sleep makes it easier to make better decisions, makes it easier to like show up and like do what you need to do and take care of yourself, and that's just the basics of self-care and of health. So, not neglecting the basics and the little things and the way it relates to your health. It's like, it is about, drinking enough water or going to sleep and, prioritizing the silly things that people overlook.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think we sleep about 1/3 of our lives. And so it's so significant, right? And to just like dismiss it as something that doesn't really need focus is a real oversight by a lot of people, unfortunately. So, and I think what you said is so accurate, is like on days where we get less sleep, on days that I get less sleep, especially with a baby, I eat way more that day because I'm just like looking for energy. I'm like looking to feel better and like be awake and like, just function better. So I eat way more. And then days when I sleep well, I go hours without eating. Like it's not as much of like, drive to like constantly be eating something. So I think there is that clear distinction there of sleeping better reduces the hunger hormones that we are dealing with day to day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's so simple ways to optimize your sleep. I mean, I think it's kind of silly, but like absolutely having a bedtime and a kind of schedule about it. Like, your parents, it will shove down your throat, but it is helpful if you go to bed and wake up at the same time, at least, 5 to 6 days a week, your body is going to get used to that schedule. I literally like don't really need an alarm clock or like anything like that because my body naturally gets tired and naturally wakes up at a certain time because I'm used to it. And I think that's like a really, really easy way to get your body tired and to wake up and energized at a certain time because your body will just kind of accumulate. And then the second thing that I would say my biggest tip outside like a sleep schedule would be like using light to your advantage. And a lot of people don't realize that nature has natural resources for you. Like the sun, like that is like, you can really use that. Like it rises and it sets for a reason. And that's to help your body feel awake and feel tired. So in the morning, get sunlight, like turn on your lights, go outside, maybe go on a walk in the morning, like really get your body moving, get your body energized. Like I know people hate it and they want to like be in the dark in the morning, but that's making you tired, and getting will actually help. And then at night, do the same, like dim your lights. Don't be in a really harsh light environment like your office that is like super fluorescent, and, really be mindful of like your phone brightness and using electronics, and just be a little bit more dim because that's going to help your body kind of have that melatonin, which is going to make you tired. So using nature to your advantage is very helpful.
Yeah, I love that. We have a lot of red lights throughout my house that we use at nighttime. So my bedside lamp can go red. In our nursery, we have red lights, especially with a baby waking up in the middle of the night. The last thing you want to do is like turn on the bright blue light and wake everybody up even more. So having different places with red lights has been super, super helpful for us, and something I've been doing for a long time. I'm very sensitive to light. And so I notice like, yeah, even if I were to look at my phone in the middle of the night, it would be a disaster for me. So there's little hacks that you can kind of do for everything to reduce the amount of blue light you get at night. And then, like you said, in the morning, getting that sunlight or turning on the bright kitchen lights, whatever you can really help like set your circadian rhythm into motion.
Exactly. And there's like filters even on your phone to make it red light too, which I still haven't done yet, but I really should. But I always wear blue light glasses and
Nice.
like try to like make it dim as much as possible.
Yeah, I have that filter on my phone and I put it as a shortcut. So you can put it on the buttons. So if you hit it 3 times, my whole phone goes red, and it's the best because I just use it at night. But I try not to use my phone at night anyway, but it is helpful if you do. Again, like if you're more sensitive to light, like I am, the little hacks actually make a big difference.
Absolutely. And that goes for anything.
Yeah, that does go for anything. You briefly mentioned bloating, and I would love to hear kind of your recommendations for this. This is not something that I have like really struggled with, but I know a ton of people struggle with bloating, like a ton. And I remember roommates of mine, in university and things like that, just like all the girls and all the things that they say dealing with bloating. It almost seems to be more of a female problem. I know it's not, but what are your 2 cents about it, and why do you think it's so common?
Oh my gosh. I feel like, unfortunately, gut issues are just rampant. I mean, just with the food and the environment and just everything that we kind of be exposed to, it's very easy for your gut to have those reactions. And bloating can be in like any kind of gut issues, whether it's bloating, whether it's constipation, like they definitely can come from 2 different aspects. One is going to be your lifestyle. Your lifestyle can cause constipation, bloating, gut issues, because if you're always eating super inflammatory foods, or if you're overeating like crazy, if you're under eating, like that can cause bloating. If you're not sleeping, if you're stressed, like things can affect your gut and make you feel bloated, cause constipation, cause these symptoms. But, the other aspect of it is that deeper root cause at play, like considering the world we live in, like it's very easy for our gut to become imbalanced. And that's where the root causes come into play. And for me, my bloating was definitely something deeper. And that's when you kind of have to get testing done. And I don't mean at your doctor. That was not helpful. I mean, like getting functional lab testing done and working with like a more holistic practitioner, because they're going to be able to see like, okay, what is going on in this person's gut? Is it, a parasite? Is it SIBO? Is it this? Is it that? And like, how can we fix it? And I think the biggest mistake people make when they do have these gut issues is, number one, like going on Instagram and getting advice from people online and trying every single diet there is on the internet because somebody else told them to do it. And then buying all these random supplements that are honestly scams that are promoted nowadays, thinking that it's going to heal their gut. And it's like, no, like you have to get to the root cause. Like doing random things aren't going to help the bloating. Unfortunately, you really do need to work with somebody and kind of figure it out and navigate that way. Because like I said, I was bloated for 3 years and I tried everything, every diet. I tried every random ass supplement you see online. Like I really did. And it's like, okay, but that wasn't getting to my root cause and solving the issue. So definitely looking further into it and solving the issue and kind of is there, because like you said, yes, bloating, gut issues, they're common, but they're not normal. Like these symptoms are kind of beautiful in a way because they're your body communicating with you that something's wrong and something's off. And you have to listen, especially if you're noticing more symptoms like fatigue, like acne, like hormonal imbalances, like brain fog, like PCOS, like, immune diseases. These things are all gut health related. So it really is like taking a look at your gut health and your lifestyle and seeing like, okay, maybe something's off here.
Exactly. Yeah. The gut is often the root cause for a lot of those issues that you're talking about, even things like eczema. It's really, yeah. And then, even once you identify that it's the gut that's causing these issues, it's like, what about the gut, right? Like you can't just take a probiotic or one supplement and think that it's going to fix the gut, because there's different issues you can have with the gut. So you could have, like you said, like parasites, SIBO, dysbiosis, leaky gut, which is what I had. And so it's really like, how do we get the gut functioning as great as we can? So you mentioned testing for the gut. What tests do you recommend and do you like to use?
In my practice, like I would always recommend like working with a practitioner, and again, not just taking a random test you see online.
Okay. So I know a lot of people talk about getting your gut tested, and obviously there's online tests that you can do and like order to your house. What do you recommend in terms of doing those tests, and like which ones do you actually prefer yourself?
Yeah. So for testing, I definitely would recommend working with somebody and like getting a professional's opinion. I do know there's like online, and some of them I actually think are okay, but a lot of them I'm like, so I definitely would recommend, getting somebody's professional opinion on it and not just wasting your money, because they can waste your money. But in my practice, I always like the first test I always start with is just a typical blood panel, because like for me, that really gives me a really great overview. And a lot of people are like, but I've gotten my blood done a million times. And I'm like, but it's different. So I always tell people like, so when you go to your doctor and get your blood panel run, they're looking at things that like the ranges they're looking at are going to be based off the average of the US population, which when you think of the average of the US, like we're very sick, we're chronically ill, we're, obese, we have our issues. So you're pretty much getting lumped into a sick population, where in functional medicine, we're looking at optimal ranges. So where people feel their best, where we're able to see really deep gut imbalances, hormonal imbalances, nutrient deficiencies, like actually can see like the bigger picture. And again, like I said, get to the root cause instead of going on a medication. So I always like to start with a blood panel because it's pretty much like a overview of everything. And like most other panels are usually a little bit more specific on one part of the body. So I do like to do like an overview first, see somebody's blood, see what's going on there. And I can really see a lot. So it's very, very interesting. And that's always where I start people off. But I know other people might say like have different preferences. But for me, that's what I see and what I like to read and what I think is the most beneficial, especially like starting off the gate.
And then do you do like a gut health test that will like assess the type of bacteria that they have, like through a stool analysis or something like that?
I can, but I usually think that like blood panel really does take me very far. kind of did like a specialty course where like it really dived deep into blood panels and like how to figure out different things just using blood alone, which is really, really cool. That way, for me, it's like I don't want to have somebody take a million different tests. I want them to be able to kind of see the most they want with just a few and not have to spend thousands of dollars. So yeah, I really do like blood. And if I think somebody needs a more specialty test or that's like, okay, that's something they really should look into, then I would recommend it, whether that is, a gut or a hormone panel or whatever else comes up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've done so many of the tests that you can do, the at-home ones. Like Viome is like such a popular one. Also the Dutch tests, I'm sure you've like analyzed and looked at. I think Dutch is great for hormones and hormone metabolites but it's complicated to read. So it's not easy for the average person. And I think that's why they so strongly recommend like working with somebody who can explain like, okay, this leads to this and this is what you need to do to like fix this level. And it's complicated, right? Like the body is complex, and that's why working with somebody one-on-one is actually the best route to success versus you just looking at Instagram, like you're saying, ordering this supplement and this test and being like, okay, I'm just going to do it myself. Really, like the results aren't there compared to like working with a professional who has done this so many times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like if I, before I knew how to read them, if I ordered a test, I would be so overwhelmed. It is confusing. Like it does take me a very long time to read like a panel, like a few hours, because you're really diving deep into every marker and seeing like, okay, this marker means this, and this marker and this marker is high, and this is how they're related. And it's like, it's like it does take me quite a bit of time to look at them. I mean, they're very complex, but it is very cool what you'll see.
Exactly. Like there's a lot of information that you can get. And then you can obviously retest after you implement like these healthy lifestyle changes, right? 3 months, 6 months. What's your typical timeline that you do for gut interventions? It's probably 3 months at least?
It depends on the person, Like for me, it took I had a very complicated test. So it took me a very, very long time, but I would say at minimum, like 4 to 6 months minimum, like 1 month, definitely not. Like it's going to take at least 4 to 6 months. And then if you have like something a little bit more complicated, like I did, like it could take a year, but it's like you're actually getting to the root cause. And like after that year, like you're not going to have these issues anymore. So it is worth it. But everybody's different and not everybody needs a year. Some people just need a few months, but it just depends.
Yeah. I love that though. And that goes back to what you were saying about a personal approach, right? Like it's not one size fits all. Okay, your gut's going to be fixed in 6 months. Every single person who comes to me, it's like, no, like it depends on your history and it depends on your life and your diet and everything that you've been through. So I think there's a lot of power in that for sure. If people want to work with you and connect with you, how can they do that and where can they go?
Yeah, so the best place to probably find me is Instagram. It's just my name, Lea, Lea _Dombrowski, DOMBROWSKI. That's my Instagram. I'm on TikTok, YouTube, wherever you want to find me. I'm probably on there. My website is www.livingwithstrength.com, and that's livingwithstrength.com. So those are probably the best places to find me.
Thank you so much. I will put those in the show notes and put it on my website so everyone can find you easily. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. This was awesome. And I just feel like I learned a lot from you. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I loved our conversation.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.